I woke up choking on the taste of rubber. The air was thick and damp, like the inside of an old basement. My wrists burned. Zip ties. My vision was blurry at first, like I had been underwater too long. The smell of mildew and gasoline filled my nose. I tried to sit up, but my head slammed against something hard above me. Panic gripped me. I was in a van. A dark one. No windows. No sound except the hum of the engine and the occasional bump of a rocky road. My mouth was dry, my throat tighter than the ties around my wrists. What the hell was happening? The last thing I remembered was sitting at my kitchen table, flipping through a strange online forum late at night. A game. A challenge. One of those underground reality games where winners supposedly walked away with thousands, maybe millions. I thought it was a joke. I only signed up because the prize was big and the questions were personal. Too personal. One of them asked about my brother, Daniel. And that was the hook, wasn't it? A sharp turn threw me against the wall. Then the van came to a sudden stop. Silence. For a long second, I held my breath. Then, slam. The back doors burst open and cold mountain air hit me like a punch. A figure in a black ski mask yanked me out. No words. Just a firm grip and a shove. Gravel crunched beneath my shoes as I stumbled forward. My eyes adjusted, revealing a towering structure in front of me. A building that might have once been a five-star resort, now swallowed by fog and time. Wooden beams sagged under their own weight. Ivy clung to broken balconies like veins on old skin. A neon sign above the rotting door flickered weakly. Welcome, Player 07. The masked figure leaned in and cut the ties. He pressed a leather-bound booklet into my hands, then vanished without a sound. I was alone. I stood there in the cold, staring up at the building. Something in me screamed to run. But my legs didn't move. My brother's name echoed in the back of my mind. If there was even a chance this place had answers. I had to go in. I opened the booklet. Rules for Player 07. 1. Never speak the name of your brother. 2. Do not enter room 212 after sunset. 3. Always lock your door at exactly 11:11 p.m. 4. If you hear footsteps outside your room, stay still and pretend to sleep. 5. Trust no one. My fingers trembled. The rules didn't make sense, but they felt tailored. Like someone had looked inside me and written them just for me. A screen near the entrance lit up. Static flickered, then a face emerged, blurry grinning. Welcome to the game, said a distorted voice. Follow the rules, Player 07. Or don't. We love a little chaos. Then the screen went dark. The wind howled behind me, urging me forward or maybe warning me to turn back. I crossed the threshold. The doors creaked shut behind me. And just like that, I was no longer a man looking for answers. I was a player in a game I didn't understand. And I had just made my first move. The silence after the van drove away was louder than any scream. I stood at the gates of a once grand resort, its wooden frame creaking under the weight of time. Moss grew up its sides like veins, and shattered windows stared back at me like dead eyes. My hands were no longer tied, but the tightness around my chest hadn't gone. I looked around. 10 of us stood there. Strangers. Different ages, different walks of life, but we all shared one thing, the same terrified expression. Like animals dropped into a maze we didn't ask for. A loud beep snapped us out of our daze. A screen mounted above the iron gates flickered on. Static at first, then black words on a white background. Welcome, Player 07. Please read your rulebook. I looked down. In my coat pocket, which I was sure had been empty, was a small black notebook. No name on the cover. Just a bold red number, 07. I flipped it open. My breath caught in my throat. Rulebook, Player 07, Adam Blake. Do not speak your brother's name. Always lock your door at 11:11 p.m. If you hear your name whispered from behind, do not turn around. Never enter room 313. Trust no one wearing red. I turned page after page. The rules got stranger, more personal. They mentioned things no one else could possibly know. Things I hadn't told anyone in years. Like the scar behind my ear. The dream I used to have every Christmas Eve. My fear of flickering lights. My mouth went dry. A woman beside me, Player 04, let out a bitter laugh. This is a joke, right? Her voice shook. Another man, Player 01, grunted. They know too much. Someone screamed. We turned. Player 09 stood frozen, his notebook open. It says I can't touch mirrors. What kind of game is this? Before anyone could answer, the screen changed. This time a face appeared, blurred, colorless, like an old VHS recording. The features were warped, as though the person had been melted and stitched back together by hand. "Welcome," the voice rasped. "I am Nevis. You have agreed to the game." No one said a word. "You will follow your rules," Nevis continued. "Break them, and the game breaks you. There is only one winner. All others are removed." The screen shut off. A gust of wind rolled down the mountain and slammed the gates open. Beyond them, the front doors of the resort creaked wider. A player mumbled, "What happens if we refuse?" Another replied, "You already said yes." I didn't remember agreeing to anything, but the rulebook said otherwise, and deep inside me, beneath the fear and confusion, I felt it. Something about this place was tied to my past. And worse, it already knew me. I stepped through the gates, notebook in hand. The others followed, one by one. The game had begun. I woke up to screams. Not the kind that come from pain, at least not at first. These screams were confused, frantic. Human panic, raw and sharp, echoing through the hollow halls of the old resort. I threw off my blanket and stumbled to the door. When I opened it, the hallway was full of people, well, the other players. 10 of us, each marked by a number stitched onto the back of our jackets. Mine read 07. I saw player 03, a tall man with a crooked posture, banging on the door to room 09. "It just disappeared," he yelled. "I saw her go in and then she's gone." "What do you mean gone?" someone shouted. "I mean gone." Player 09 was a woman named Valerie. She had dark eyes and a voice that never showed fear. I'd spoken to her briefly during orientation, if you could even call that strange, silent gathering by the fireplace an orientation. Now her room was open, her bag still on the bed, her boots by the door, but no Valerie. I stepped inside. The room looked ordinary. Still, the air felt wrong, thick, like the silence after a scream. On the mirror, someone or something had written a message in red. "Rule broken. Penalty applied." Player 06, a young guy with a shaky voice, backed away and whispered, "She tried to open the fire escape last night. I saw her. It's in the rulebook. No fire exits unless there's a siren." We all stood frozen. Nevis' voice came from the loudspeaker above us, flat and unfeeling. Player 09 violated Rule 12. She is no longer in play. The speaker went silent. Lila, the medic I met earlier, looked pale. This is real, isn't it?" I nodded, though I wished I didn't believe it either. One by one, the others drifted back to their rooms, like ghosts retreating into their graves. I stayed behind for a moment longer, staring at the message on the mirror. I reached out to touch it. Sticky. It wasn't paint. That night, I sat in my room, reading my rulebook again line by line. I couldn't afford to miss a single instruction. Rule 7. Never speak about the exit unless the lights are flickering. Rule 10. Always close your eyes if you hear someone call your name after midnight. Rule 17. If another player disappears, do not investigate. I shut the book and looked around my room. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it had before. For the first time since arriving, I truly felt afraid. Not just of Nevis, not just of the rules, but of whatever enforced them. And deep inside, a terrible question began to grow. What happened to Valerie? No one ever spoke of her again. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear the scratching again. It came from the inside of the walls, light, desperate, like nails dragging across rotted wood. I stayed curled on the edge of the bed, clutching the rulebook to my chest, repeating the one line I couldn't get out of my head. Always lock your door at 11:11 p.m. I had. Barely. But someone, or something, had still tried to get in. Morning came, though it didn't feel like it. The sun never really shined here. The sky hung heavy with gray clouds, and the air carried a strange, damp stillness. The others were gathering near the dining hall. I could hear muffled voices, worried, arguing. I stepped out of my room slowly, glancing both ways. The hallway seemed longer today. I swear it wasn't this stretched yesterday. My room was number 07. The numbers before and after it, 06 and 08, looked closer than usual. My hands trembled slightly as I slid the rulebook into my jacket. I made my way to the hall, forcing myself to act normal. They were all there minus one. Player 02. The one with the loud laugh and the rule. Do not touch any mirrors. Last night, he had joked about how stupid that was. We all laughed, just to hide the fear. But this morning, his chair sat empty. Lila noticed me first. She sat at the far end of the table, away from the others. Her hoodie was pulled tight around her face, but her eyes were alert. Sharp. She gave a slight nod, almost like she'd been waiting for me. I sat beside her without saying a word. "He's gone," she whispered. I figured. No blood. No noise. Just gone. His room's locked from the inside. My heart beat faster. "What do you think happened?" She looked at me carefully before answering. "I think he broke his rule. And the game doesn't forgive that." That word, game, sounded heavier than it should. Like something darker hid behind it. Like something alive. "What's your rule?" she asked quietly. I hesitated. I hadn't told anyone. Was it safe? Could I trust her? "Don't say my brother's name out loud," I finally said. She raised her eyebrows. "That's specific." "Yeah. His name's Daniel. Or was. He went missing 2 years ago. This place, it's connected. I came here to find answers." She stared at me a long moment, then leaned in closer. "My brother's gone too." My breath caught. "He was a firefighter. Disappeared last year. The only thing they found was a burnt envelope with a card inside. It said, 'Welcome to the game.' I felt cold all over. Same card. I got it too." She nodded. I thought maybe I was losing my mind. But the moment I saw Nevis on the screen, I knew. My brother was here. And now so are we. I looked around. The others were still arguing. One guy swearing the rooms were moving, another crying quietly to herself. The air buzzed with fear. "This place is more than a game," I whispered. "It's watching us. Testing us." "Yeah," she said. "And if we don't figure it out, we won't leave." We sat in silence for a while, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Then Lila pulled something from her sleeve. A folded piece of paper, yellowed and creased. "I found this under my mattress this morning," she said. I unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. It said, "The rules are lies. The rules are keys. Break the wrong one, and you become one of them." I looked up at her. "What does it mean?" She swallowed. "I think it means the rules don't just keep us alive, they might also be the way out." The hallway lights above flickered once. Then again. A deep voice crackled from the ceiling speaker. "Player 02 has been removed. Remain calm. Follow your rules." I looked at Lila. She looked at me. And that was the moment we became something more than strangers. We became survivors. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Not after what happened to Player 04. One moment he was here, sitting across from us in the lounge, hands shaking as he read his rule aloud. "Do not sit on red furniture." And the next gone. Not a scream. Not a sound. Just a strange crackle in the air, like the static on an old television. And then nothing. His cup of coffee was still steaming. The rest of us scattered to our rooms like frightened rats. I locked my door 3 times and shoved a chair beneath the handle for good measure. My rulebook lay open on the floor. The same sentence burned into my memory. "Always lock your door at 11:11 p.m. The air inside the room felt thick, heavy, like I wasn't alone. I paced back and forth, heart pounding, listening to the groans of the old building. The floorboards creaked beneath me, but sometimes they creaked behind me, when I wasn't moving. I'd spin around, expecting to see something. Nothing. Just peeling wallpaper and shadows. At 11:10, I stood by the door, eyes locked on my watch. When the minute ticked over, I turned the deadbolt, then the key lock, then the chain. 3 locks. Just like last night. I backed away slowly. Then a knock. Not a loud one. Just a soft tap. Like someone didn't want to wake the others. I froze. Another knock. Then a whisper, almost too low to hear. "Adam, you forgot something." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't respond. I didn't move. My feet felt rooted to the floor, like the wood itself didn't want me to get closer. The knock came again, longer this time, followed by a dragging sound. And then silence. I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the edge of the bed until the sun bled faintly through the curtains. Morning came like a bad hangover. The lounge was quiet when I got there, only 4 of us left now. Lila was staring into her tea, like it held the meaning of life. She didn't look up when I sat next to her. "Did you hear knocking last night?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Then she nodded slowly. "Did it say your name?" No, her voice was hoarse. "It said my brother's." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked at her, really looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes. The way she flinched every time someone moved. I was starting to recognize it in all of us, the cracks. "This place," she whispered. "It gets inside your head. Plays with things you've buried." She pulled something from her coat pocket. A photo. A boy in a hoodie, probably early 20s, with her same cautious eyes. "My brother," she said. He disappeared 2 years ago. No one found him. But last night, that voice sounded just like his. Exactly like him. I stared at the picture. My hands trembled. I think my brother played this game too, I said. Lila looked at me startled. His name was Daniel. Daniel Blake. He vanished a year ago. No trail, no phone signal, nothing. Just gone. Her eyes widened. I've heard that name before. Where? She didn't answer. Just pointed to the bookshelf in the corner of the lounge. I stood up and walked over. The books were dusty, arranged like props in a fake room. But one of them stood out, Guest Registry, 2019. I flipped through the pages. Most names were smudged, ink faded. But there it was, scratched into the paper in shaky handwriting. Daniel Blake, Player 07. My vision swam. I sank into the nearest chair, read. Then I remembered Player 04, and shot up, heart hammering. Adam, Lila said suddenly, her voice tight. What? She pointed to the floor. Beneath the coffee table was a folded piece of paper. I picked it up, unfolded it. You remembered what you were supposed to forget. Keep going. He's still here. There was no signature. Just a drop of dried blood on the corner. I woke up gasping for air, as if I'd been underwater. The ceiling above me looked wrong. The cracks had changed direction. The damp patch that used to look like a map of Africa was now shaped like a face, staring straight at me. Something had shifted overnight. Not just in my mind. I pushed myself off the mattress and glanced around. The room was the same, but also not. The chair by the corner was missing, and the mirror now had a jagged crack through the center, splitting my reflection into two crooked halves. I opened the door slowly. The hallway, once short and narrow, had stretched. It looked longer now, with more doors on each side, doors I didn't remember being there. The carpet was different too. Last night it was red with gold trim. Now it was a dark forest green, stained in spots that looked uncomfortably fresh. My pulse picked up. I pressed my hand against the wall for balance. Cold. Damp. Lila? I called out. No answer. I walked down the hall, trying to retrace the path to her room. The numbers on the doors no longer made sense, jumping from 05 to 17 to 03. I turned a corner that shouldn't have been there and found myself facing a wall that read, in faded black paint. You're not lost. You were never found. The silence around me buzzed with something electric. My throat felt tight. I walked faster. Finally, I turned another corner and almost ran into Lila. Adam, she whispered, grabbing my arm. Her eyes were wide. You saw it too? I nodded. This place had changed. She pulled me into her room and shut the door behind us. I marked my door with chalk last night, she said, pointing. Now the mark's gone. And my window shows trees, but yesterday it faced the courtyard. I looked at her window. She was right. Pine trees swayed gently outside, but we were on the 3rd floor, and there was no forest when we arrived. I think the building moves, she said. Or we do. Maybe both. We sat in silence for a moment. I tried to calm my breathing. Then she said, I found something. She reached under her bed and pulled out an envelope. It was taped to the back of the toilet tank. It has your name on it. My stomach twisted. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single note, typed in all caps. The map is a lie. Trust the sound, not the walls. And beneath it, handwritten in red ink. He's still here. My fingers went cold. Who wrote this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lila shook her head. No idea. But it was hidden well. Meant for you, clearly. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. Then I looked around her room again. Something about it didn't feel right. Have you noticed the cameras? I asked her. She blinked. What cameras? I pointed above the door. A tiny black lens poked out from a wooden panel. It was nearly invisible, unless you knew what to look for. She stood and walked up to it. How long has that been there? No clue, I said. But we're definitely being watched. Just then, a low hum filled the room, like static building up behind the walls. We both looked around, tense. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. And then we heard it, slow footsteps in the hallway. Heavy dragging. A sound that didn't belong to any of the players we'd seen. We froze. The footsteps stopped right outside her door. Then a soft knock. 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 Neither of us moved. And then the voice came. Low, gravelly, almost mechanical. Player 7, you forgot your rule. I felt like my heart had stopped. Then silence. We waited a full minute before moving again. Lila whispered, What rule did you forget? I didn't answer right away. I pulled the rulebook from my pocket, flipping through the pages. There it was. Rule 4. Do not speak your brother's name after sundown. And I remembered now. I had whispered it in my sleep. Last night. Right before I woke up gasping. His name. I said, my voice trembling. I said Daniel. Lila stared at me. Who's Daniel? I looked at her. My brother. And suddenly I realized, this game wasn't about survival. It was about memory. About guilt. About the things we tried to bury deep inside ourselves. And this place, it was digging it all back up. I woke up to the sound of a faint humming in the air, like the buzz of an old fluorescent light. The room was dim, the light slanting through the cracked blinds, and I could feel the weight of something heavy pressing down on my chest. The tension in the air seemed thicker today. It felt like the walls were closer than yesterday, like they were watching me more closely. The game, whatever it was, seemed to have a rhythm, a pulse that I was beginning to feel in my bones. And every day the rules twisted, the atmosphere thickened. The fear here, it wasn't just in the air. It was in me, crawling under my skin, gnawing at the edges of my mind. I turned toward the small window by the bed and saw the mist outside, hanging like a curtain over the distant mountains. It was the kind of fog you couldn't escape from, no matter how fast you ran. Lila was still asleep on the other side of the room, wrapped in her blanket, like she was trying to protect herself from something invisible. I glanced at my rulebook again. It had become a lifeline, my only way to make sense of the chaos. Each page felt like a riddle, each instruction more cryptic than the last. Today's was no different. Do not trust the cameras. They lie. I stared at the words, trying to understand them, but the meaning kept slipping through my fingers. The cameras? The ones that watched us? That meant they were watching me, every minute, every second. Could they be lying to me? Before I could ponder it too long, I heard a rustling sound. It came from the hallway outside the room, a low scrape like nails on concrete. I stood up, heart pounding. Every part of me screamed to stay put, but my legs moved before I could think twice. I opened the door slowly, the hinges creaking as if warning me to turn back. I stepped into the hallway, the strange, musty smell of the place hanging thick in the air. The fog outside seemed to creep through the cracks in the walls, the faint outline of a long, dim corridor stretching out before me. Lila was right behind me, her footsteps barely audible. What is it, Adam? She whispered, her voice shaky. She was clearly nervous too, but there was something else in her eyes. Something like hope. I think I found something, I muttered, not fully understanding why I said it, but somehow knowing it was true. There was something hidden here, something important. And maybe, just maybe, this was the key to understanding what was happening. We moved forward together, our footsteps barely making a sound. The corridor seemed to go on forever, the walls curved in ways that didn't make sense. I couldn't tell if the place was warping, or if my mind was starting to break. Every hallway we turned into seemed to stretch longer than the last. But there, at the end of the corridor, glowing faintly from behind a set of metal doors, was something that caught my attention. A small sign above the door flickered with a faint red light. It read, Observation Room. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't a room we were supposed to be in. It was locked for a reason. But I had no choice. It was like the game was pushing me toward it, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't turn away. I tried the door handle. To my surprise, it opened easily. We stepped inside. The room was small, barely large enough to fit a table and a few chairs. A single light hung from the ceiling, casting sharp shadows against the cold, cracked walls. But it wasn't the room that made my skin crawl. It was what was inside. Monitors. Dozens of them. They lined the walls, some flickering, some showing static, others displaying grainy footage. The faces of the players, our faces, appeared on the screens, moving, talking, sometimes even sleeping. It was like we were nothing more than ants trapped in a jar. And then I saw it. My face. But it wasn't like I'd seen it before. On one of the monitors, I was sleeping, lying in the bed back in my room. My eyes were closed, my body still, but there was something wrong about it. The image was too clear, too real. As if the camera was seeing more than just the surface. I blinked and looked away, but it didn't go away. The image stayed there, just staring back at me. I turned to Lila, but she was already frozen, staring at a different screen. Her eyes were wide with terror. That's me, she whispered. I walked over to her and looked at the screen she was watching. It was her, but the image was blurry, distorted. Her face twisted in a scream, as though she was trying to say something, but no sound came through. Why are we being watched like this? I asked, my voice hoarse. Lila didn't answer. She was too busy searching the other monitors, her eyes darting from screen to screen. But I knew. She knew. We were being studied, observed, trapped like animals in a cage. And then, as if in answer to my question, the screen in front of me flickered to life. A new image appeared, one I wasn't expecting. It was a file labeled Daniel Blake. My brother's name. My stomach twisted into knots. A grainy video played, showing my brother alive but barely. He was chained to a chair, bruised and broken. The screen glitched, the sound cutting in and out, but I could hear one thing clearly, my brother's voice. Adam, you have to get out, don't make the same mistake I did. The screen cut to static, and the room fell into an oppressive silence. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My brother had been here in this game. And now I was part of it too. I turned to Lila, my heart pounding. We need to get out. Now. But when I reached for the door, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The door was locked. I woke up with a jolt, my body stiff from the uncomfortable bed. The once peaceful silence of the resort had shifted. The air felt thicker, heavier, as if something invisible was pressing down on me. I glanced around the room, the familiar sensation of being watched crawling up my spine. The cameras, always lurking, had me feeling like a rat in a maze, constantly running, yet always trapped. Lila was already awake, sitting at the small wooden table in the corner. She had a distant look in her eyes, her face pale as if the weight of the situation was beginning to break through her usually calm demeanor. Her rule, the one she'd shared with me yesterday, was etched in my mind: do not treat the wounded. I had asked her what it meant, but she'd only given me a tight-lipped smile and said, "You'll understand soon enough." Now, I wasn't so sure I wanted to understand. "I've been thinking," Lila said without looking at me, her voice quiet. "Maybe we should stop trusting anyone." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I was starting to feel it too, the tension, the paranoia, the way everyone seemed to be watching each other, waiting for the next mistake. Every conversation felt like a game of chess, where one wrong move could cost you everything. But to stop trusting everyone? That felt like too much, even for me. "Why? You think someone's already planning something?" I asked, though the question sounded weak even to my own ears. The unease in my stomach grew. Lila finally looked up, her eyes sharp, filled with a mix of fear and determination. "Don't pretend like you haven't noticed. People here, they're playing their own games. And they're hiding something. Maybe more than one person's rules aren't what they say they are." I could feel the knot tightening in my chest. Could she be right? I wanted to trust the people here, to believe that they weren't all out to get me. But after everything, could I really trust anyone? Just as I was about to respond, a scream echoed through the hall, slicing through the silence like a knife. It was high-pitched, frantic, the kind of scream that made your skin crawl. It was coming from one of the rooms down the hall. My heart raced. A chill ran down my spine. My first instinct was to run, but I stayed frozen, my eyes meeting Lila's. "We have to see what happened," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if it was a question or a command. We hurried down the hallway, my feet dragging like they were being pulled by something I couldn't see. As we rounded the corner, the door to one of the rooms was wide open. Inside, the room was a mess, like someone had been dragged across the floor. But there was no body, no blood, only the faint smell of something metallic, and the floor was slick with something I didn't want to identify. I stepped closer, my breath shallow. Lila was behind me, her hand on the doorframe, ready to pull me away if anything happened. I could feel her eyes on me, but she said nothing. We both knew that the other players were hiding things we didn't yet understand. The room looked untouched, except for a small piece of paper on the floor. I bent down to pick it up, my hands trembling. The paper was old, the edges curling, as if it had been there for a long time. I turned it over slowly. "Don't trust him," it read. "He's not who he says he is." I felt a cold shiver creep down my spine. Him? Who was him? Who was this warning for? Was it for me? Was it for someone else? The words seemed to burn into my mind. There was no signature, no clue as to who had written it or when. But something about it felt too personal, too targeted. Lila leaned in to read over my shoulder. "Do you think it's a trick?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to believe it. But something in the pit of my stomach twisted. This game, it wasn't just some game. It was a trap, and I had no idea who was setting the traps or who I could trust to help me avoid them. Suddenly, there was a loud bang from the other end of the hall, followed by more shouting. I snapped my head toward the sound. Another player had burst out of their room, running in a panic. They collided with one of the cameras, knocking it off its mount. Their face was pale, eyes wild, and their breath came in jagged gasps. "I broke my rule," they screamed. "I broke my rule." Before I could react, they were gone, pulled backward into their room, as if by some invisible force. A distorted voice, like Nevis, crackled through the speakers. "Player 03, you have violated the rules. Punishment will follow." The door slammed shut, the room falling into an eerie silence. I could still hear the faint echo of the player's scream, but it was fading quickly. The rules were unforgiving. And now, more than ever, I was starting to understand just how dangerous it was to break them. Lila was staring at the door, her face hardening. "We need to figure out who's behind this," she said. "If we don't, we're next." I nodded, but I knew deep down that we were already part of the game. There was no way out now. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if I could trust anyone to help me. The air felt different this morning, thicker, heavier, like the walls themselves were closing in on me. I woke up to a sound I couldn't place, a low hum, almost as if the entire resort was alive, breathing. I sat up on the edge of my bed, rubbing my eyes, trying to shake off the fog of sleep. My rulebook was beside me, open to a page I hadn't seen before. The words on the page blurred, as if the ink was running. "Trust no one, not even yourself," it read. I closed the book with a snap, my heart pounding in my chest. I was starting to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Maybe I already had. Lila came by not long after. She didn't knock, just walked right in like she always did, a determined frown on her face. "Something's wrong, Adam," she said, her voice tight. "There's something off about today." I didn't need to ask what she meant. We both felt it. We'd both felt it the moment we woke up. There was a strange stillness to everything. No one else seemed to be stirring. The sounds of the other players, those low murmurs that normally filled the halls, were gone. It was as if they had all vanished into thin air. Lila took a step toward the door, eyes darting around the room, but I stopped her. "Where's everyone else? Have you seen them?" She shook her head, frustration setting in. "I went down the hall, checked every room. No one's there." I could feel the tension rise in my chest, a tight knot I couldn't loosen. What was happening? Were they playing with us again, or had something worse happened? I glanced at the clock. It was 9 a.m., the same time as every other day, but the sense of urgency in the air was undeniable. Without another word, we made our way down the hall. It felt longer than usual. The walls seemed to stretch farther, and the carpet beneath my feet was worn down to the threads. As we walked, I noticed something strange. The doors to the rooms were all ajar. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but the further we went, the more it unsettled me. We passed room 03, and I froze. The door was wide open, and the lights inside flickered like a malfunctioning bulb. But that wasn't what made me stop. It was the sound, or the lack of sound. No voices, no murmurs. Just silence. "Adam," Lila whispered, her voice barely audible, "something's wrong." I nodded, swallowing hard. "We need to check it out." We stepped into the room, careful not to make a sound. The bed was unmade, the sheets tangled. On the floor was a chair, tipped over as if someone had left in a hurry. But what made my stomach turn was the pool of blood near the bed. It was fresh, still wet, like whoever it belonged to had been here moments ago. There was no body, no sign of a struggle, just the blood and the remnants of someone's hurried escape. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. "Where did they go?" I muttered, but the words didn't seem to have an answer. Lila backed away slowly, her hand trembling as she reached for my arm. "He's gone." We turned to leave, but then I saw something that made my heart stop. The door to the bathroom was open, but the mirror inside was cracked, the shards scattered across the floor in jagged pieces. A figure was reflected in one of the broken shards, a dark silhouette standing just behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. I blinked, feeling the blood drain from my face. "Did you see that?" Lila didn't respond, but the fear in her eyes said it all. She'd seen it too. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. "We need to get out of here. Now." We moved fast, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The hallway felt colder now, and the flickering lights seemed to follow our every step. Every door we passed felt like it was hiding something, something just out of reach. When we reached the main lobby, we stopped dead in our tracks. The place was empty. The large chandelier that usually hung from the ceiling was swaying ever so slightly, casting long shadows on the marble floors. The receptionist's desk was unmanned, and the air felt thick with the absence of human presence. "This is it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "They're all gone." Lila nodded, gripping my arm so tightly it almost hurt. Where did they go, Adam? They didn't just vanish. I couldn't answer her. I didn't know. But there was one thing I was sure of. This game had just taken a darker turn. Something was changing, something was happening to us all. And I couldn't figure out if we were being punished, tested, or if we were part of something far more sinister than we could ever imagine. I glanced back down the hallway, feeling the weight of the rulebook in my pocket. There was something written in the pages I hadn't noticed before. Something that felt like a warning. My eyes scanned the page. You will never leave unless you remember what you've forgotten. The words danced in front of me, like a puzzle I had to solve. What had I forgotten? What was I missing? And more importantly, why did I feel like I was running out of time? I looked at Lila, her face pale and tense. We need to find out what happened. And we need to do it before it happens to us. And with that, I knew the game was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. I couldn't sleep, not with the weight of the rulebook pressing against my chest like a heavy, suffocating weight. The silence in the room was deafening, so I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the cameras above. They were watching, always watching. It felt as though the very walls of the room were closing in on me, but the most unsettling part, I wasn't sure if I was just imagining it or if the walls truly were shifting. One moment, the door was on the right side of the room. The next, it was on the left. The clock on the wall, the one that always ticked a bit too loudly, was now ticking irregularly, like it had a mind of its own. I rolled over, grabbed the rulebook, and flicked through it again. I'd already read the cryptic rules 100 times, but this time, I was looking for something new. Something I had missed. It was hard to focus. My mind was too clouded with confusion and fear, but I had to find something, anything, that could make sense of all this. Then, tucked in between the pages, something caught my eye. A torn piece of paper. It was crumpled and looked out of place, but there it was. I pulled it free and unfolded it, my breath catching in my throat. It was a journal entry, written in shaky, frantic handwriting. I didn't recognize the name at first, but then I read it again. Daniel Blake. My brother's name. I could hardly breathe. My hands shook as I read the next line. They told me I would be safe. That this game was a test. But every test has its price. I broke a rule, and now I'm part of it. I'm not who I was before. The words blurred as I tried to make sense of them, my heart pounding in my chest. Daniel was here. He had been a part of this game, just like me. But what did it mean that he was part of it? My stomach twisted as I realized that the name on the paper, the one scrawled in blood-red ink, wasn't the only thing that connected the journal to my brother. I flipped the page over and found more. Each entry was more frantic than the last. The writing was getting messier, more desperate. There were mentions of the rules and how they warped reality. How the game had a way of bending you, twisting your mind until you didn't know where the game ended and you began. But the final entry made my blood run cold. It was dated a week before the last entry, the one before the paper had been crumpled. It simply said, Nevis was never a player. He was one of us, a test subject turned into a game master. This game is designed to keep us here. It keeps playing with our minds until there's nothing left of who we were. Nevis. That name. It had been haunting me for days. But now, seeing it in this journal, written by my brother, it took on a whole new meaning. I had thought of Nevis as a shadow, a distant figure in this twisted game, but now I understood. Nevis wasn't just a game master. He was the product of this very game. The game had changed him, manipulated him until he was something else, something unrecognizable. I sank back against the wall, the journal trembling in my hands. This was real. My brother had come here, just like I had, and the game had claimed him. Had turned him into what? A puppet of the rules? A puppet of Nevis? Was that my future? Suddenly, the room felt colder, darker. I could hear the faintest sound of footsteps from somewhere outside the door. Someone was walking in the hallway. It wasn't a player. It couldn't be. The footsteps were too soft, too deliberate. The sound sent a chill down my spine. Nevis. I needed answers. Desperately. I stood up and walked to the door. My heart hammered in my chest as I grasped the handle, ready to face whatever lay beyond it. The rulebook was heavy in my hand, its weight reminding me that I couldn't escape unless I played by the rules. But what if the rules were a lie? What if everything I thought I knew was twisted beyond recognition? With a deep breath, I opened the door. The hallway was dimly lit, and the air felt thick with an unnatural stillness. The footsteps had stopped, but I could feel a presence, something, or someone lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. I walked forward cautiously, the silence stretching out in front of me. And then I saw it. a small piece of paper on the floor, just beneath the flickering light. My heart stopped. I bent down, my fingers trembling as I picked it up. There were only a few words written on it. "You are becoming him." The blood in my veins ran cold. Nevis. I was becoming Nevis. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. The game wasn't just about surviving. It was about transforming. About losing yourself piece by piece until you were just another part of the system. Another puppet to do the bidding of the game. And I was already too far gone to turn back. The air in the basement was thick with dust, suffocating in its silence. Every step I took seemed to echo through the empty halls, bouncing off the cold stone walls and making my pulse race faster. I should have known better than to venture down here. Something in my gut told me this was where the game truly started, not where it ended. But I had to know. I had to understand what this place was, why it felt like it was pulling me deeper, away from everything familiar. I descended the stairs, the metal railing cold under my hand. The steps creaked beneath my boots, protesting each movement. There were no windows, no lights, just the faint flicker of a bulb that hung like a lost star in the vast darkness. As I moved closer, I could see that the bulb was swinging slightly, casting erratic shadows that made the walls look alive, as if they were breathing. The deeper I went, the more the air seemed to shift. It wasn't just cold anymore. It felt wrong, as if the very atmosphere was aware of my presence. Every muscle in my body tensed, ready for something to leap out from the shadows, but I couldn't turn back now. My brother's name haunted me in the back of my mind, a whisper that would never leave. And then I saw it. At the end of the hallway there was a door. It was unlike any door I'd seen before. The wood was old, weathered, like something from a forgotten time. But what made it different was the way it seemed to draw me in. I don't know if it was the desperation in my chest or the strange pull of curiosity, but I found myself standing in front of it before I even realized I'd moved. I reached for the knob, hesitating for just a moment. It turned easily in my hand, as though it had been waiting for me. The door creaked open, and what lay beyond hit me like a physical blow. A room filled with mirrors. It was a small space, but the mirrors were everywhere, covering the walls, the ceiling, the floor. They weren't ordinary mirrors, though. Each one was cracked, some jagged and others with webs of fracture lines running through them like veins. The glass caught the dim light and reflected it back 100-fold, making the room feel endless, as though there was no escape. I stepped inside, my heart hammering in my chest. My reflection stared back at me from every angle. But as I moved, I noticed something off. Each reflection wasn't quite me. In some, I looked younger, thinner, as if I was still in my 20s. In others, I was older, worn, with dark circles under my eyes. There were versions of me that I didn't recognize at all. Some smiled back at me, others scowled, their faces twisted in anger or pain. I reached out to touch one of the mirrors, but the moment my fingers brushed the surface, the image shifted. The reflection of me standing there flickered, like an old TV screen losing signal. A shiver ran down my spine. Suddenly, a voice filled the room, quiet at first, then louder, as if it were coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Choose who you want to be." My breath caught in my throat. I spun around, but there was no one there. No one except the broken versions of myself staring back. The voice wasn't Nevis. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was something else, something deeper, darker. A part of me I didn't want to acknowledge. I stepped back, my hands trembling. "What is this?" I muttered, my voice too loud in the silence. "Who do you want to be?" the voice repeated. "The past or the future?" I looked at the cracked mirror in front of me, and for a moment, I saw something different, a figure standing behind me, dark and indistinct. My heart pounded in my chest, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The figure stepped forward, closer, until I could see its face. It was my brother, Daniel. But something was wrong. His face was hollow, his eyes sunken and filled with something dark, something I couldn't describe. He reached out to me, but his hands didn't move like a human's. It was unnatural, stiff, as though he was trapped in the same nightmare I was. "Adam," he whispered, his voice distorted, like it was being played through a broken speaker. "You could have saved me." I stumbled back, my heart crashing in my chest. No, you're not real." I shouted, but my voice came out weak, desperate. Daniel's reflection smiled, a twisted, knowing grin. "No." "Then tell me, Adam, why are you here?" I looked at my own reflection in the mirror again. I didn't recognize myself. I couldn't even remember when I had lost myself. Had I been running from the truth all this time? Or had I always been a part of this game? "You're not the man you think you are," the voice echoed. This game, it's in you. It's always been in you. I backed away, tripping over my own feet, and hit the floor hard. My mind raced, each thought more jumbled than the last. Was this real? Was I losing my mind? Make a choice, the voice said again, this time sharper, as if it were forcing me to listen. Remember what you've forgotten. I tried to steady myself, my thoughts spiraling into chaos. What had I forgotten? What was the game trying to make me remember? The figure of my brother flickered again, and I realized then, it wasn't just the mirrors that were broken. I was broken. This game, this place, it wasn't trying to make me remember the past. It was trying to make me accept that I had been a part of it all along. With shaking hands, I reached for the mirror once more, staring at the fractured image of myself. The truth was there, just beyond my reach, but I wasn't sure I was ready to face it. But then again, I wasn't sure I had a choice. Who do you want to be, Adam? The voice whispered again. And for the first time, I didn't have an answer. The walls closed in around me, narrowing the path forward, until I stood in a room so familiar it sent chills crawling down my spine. It was my childhood home, but not quite. The walls were the same pale blue, the carpet that familiar beige, but the air was thick, heavy with something I couldn't name. The room was suffocating, as though every piece of furniture, every picture frame, was closing in on me. I should have known this would happen. This game, this reality, it was always going to drag me back to this moment. The truth, the guilt, and now Nevis. Standing across the room, Nevis smiled at me. There was no trace of the twisted, cold demeanor they'd worn up until now. Instead, their eyes shone with something darker, something too familiar. It was the same look I saw in the mirror when I couldn't face what I had done. The look of someone who had been broken by the weight of their own actions. "You've been waiting for this moment," Nevis said, their voice disturbingly calm. The words slipped through the room like cold air, cutting the silence. I felt my chest tighten. The room spun. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The pain of seeing them, their familiar yet alien smile, pulled me in like a gravity I couldn't escape. "No, I haven't," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "I'm not ready." Nevis' smile only widened, as if they were in on a secret I hadn't yet understood. "You're already here, Adam. You've been here all along." The floor beneath my feet seemed to groan, the soft carpet suddenly feeling like it was pulling me into the earth. I stepped back, my pulse thundering in my ears, but my feet were stuck, as though the room itself was holding me in place. "Let me go," I said, my voice cracking. "Oh, but that's the thing, isn't it? You've never truly been free. Not since the day you chose to forget." My heart skipped a beat. Forget what? The question was a reflex, but I already knew. Nevis stepped closer, their gaze never leaving mine, their every movement like liquid darkness, flowing across the room. "You buried it deep, didn't you? Your brother, Daniel. The choice you made when you let him go." I stumbled back, hitting the corner of the wall. A sharp pain shot through me, but it was nothing compared to the flood of memories rushing back. My brother's face, his voice calling out in the dark. My hand reaching, but never quite reaching far enough. The moment I chose to turn away. To leave him behind. I didn't, I gasped, shaking my head. I didn't choose it. I didn't want to. "Lies," Nevis interrupted, their voice growing colder, sharper. You chose this, Adam. The moment you stepped into the game. The moment you closed your eyes and let him slip away. The walls around me seemed to press in harder now, the air thinner. I felt dizzy, a wave of nausea crashing over me. I staggered, my vision blurring as my brother's face flickered in my mind, followed by the harsh memories of that night. "Stop," I begged. "Please stop. You never faced it, did you?" Nevis continued, their voice like a razor against my skin. "You thought you could outrun it, but here it is. This is your reality. This is who you are. Well, you've always been. A coward." My knees buckled beneath me. The ground felt cold as I sank, my hands scraping against the floor. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt tight. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. "Get up," Nevis ordered, their tone shifting. Now there was something else in their voice, something twisted and almost too familiar. It was me. My own guilt. My own shame. All of it wrapped up in Nevis, like a reflection I couldn't escape. I can't face it," I whispered, feeling the tears sting my eyes, mixing with the suffocating panic in my chest. "Oh, but you already have," Nevis said softly, their voice almost a purr. "This is who you are, Adam. This game, this nightmare, it's part of you now. You've been chosen." I felt something shift inside of me, a deep pull in my chest. It wasn't Nevis anymore. It wasn't the game. It was me. It was my own guilt, my own darkest thoughts, staring back at me from every corner of the room. I had never really escaped it. I had been living in this hell the entire time. Neva's face distorted, their features warping into something unrecognizable. I didn't want to look at it, but I couldn't look away. You've seen it, Adam. You've seen the truth. Now the question is, will you accept it? The room seemed to swallow me whole, the walls closing in tighter, suffocating my thoughts. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps as I realized there was no running from this. There was only one choice. But as Neva's voice echoed in my ears, the weight of the truth was too much to bear. I couldn't face it, not yet. Not until I was ready. And so, in that moment, I made a decision. I would face it, but not alone. I'm not like you, I said, my voice hoarse but steady. I'll never be like you. Nevis laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. You already are. As the room around me started to fade, and the edges of my vision blurred, I realized one thing. The game wasn't over. Not yet. It had only just begun. I don't know how long I've been walking. The halls of the resort stretch before me like a twisted labyrinth, the walls lined with old wallpaper that peels away like decaying skin. The air smells of mildew and something darker, something I can't quite place. Every step I take echoes around me, amplifying the silence that has settled into my bones. It's as if the whole place is holding its breath, waiting for something to break. I didn't want to come down here. I didn't want to face this part of the game, but I don't have a choice anymore. I've wandered so far into this place that it's starting to feel like it's swallowing me whole. The more I walk, the more the walls close in. There's a sense of urgency now, an unseen force pushing me toward the inevitable. I stop in front of a door I don't recognize. It's familiar in a way that makes my chest tighten. The door is old, the wood scratched and warped, as though it's been here for years. I reach out, my fingers trembling as they hover just above the handle. For a moment, I wonder if I should turn back, if I should leave it all behind. But I know deep down that turning back is no longer an option. The game won't let me. It never will. With a deep breath, I twist the handle and push the door open. Inside, it's cold. The room is dark, but not completely. There's a faint light coming from somewhere, just enough to make out the details. The floor is covered in a thick layer of dust, and the walls are lined with mirrors, tall and thin, stretching from floor to ceiling. The mirrors reflect my every move, but they're not right. There's something off about them. The reflection in the glass isn't exactly me. It's me, but not me. It's like looking at a distorted version of myself, twisted by fear and regret. I step inside, my shoes crunching on the dust beneath me. I want to turn and leave, but my legs won't move. I feel rooted to the spot, as if the room itself is holding me here, forcing me to confront what I've been running from. A voice speaks, soft but clear. It's not Nevis, it's my own voice, though it sounds different. Like an echo of something I once was, something I've forgotten. Choose who you want to be. I freeze, my heart racing in my chest. The voice rings in my ears, louder now, reverberating in the mirrors. I look around, but there's no one here. No Nevis. No other players. Just me, and the mirrors, and my own reflection staring back at me, each one more distorted than the last. I take a step closer to one of the mirrors. This one shows me as I am now, worn, tired, hollow. The face staring back at me has dark circles under the eyes, a haunted look that I didn't have before this game. I can almost feel the weight of everything I've lost pressing down on me. The missing players. Lila. My brother. The truth I've been running from for so long. I've ignored it, buried it deep, convinced myself it wasn't real. Another step. Another mirror. This one shows a different version of me. Younger, cleaner, more alive. My eyes are bright, my face free of the exhaustion and fear that's been consuming me. But there's something wrong about this version too. It's too perfect. Too clean. It's the me I wish I could be, the me I wanted to be before all of this began. Before I was trapped in the game. Before I lost myself. I turn away from the mirror and stumble backward, my hand reaching out for something to steady myself. But there's nothing here. Just the endless rows of mirrors, each one offering a glimpse of who I could be, or who I was. The voice grows louder, closer. Choose who you want to be. I feel a tightness in my chest, a heaviness that drags me down. My mind races, scrambling to make sense of the impossible. What do I choose? Do I choose the broken version of myself that I've become, or do I reach for the version of me that never existed, the one I thought I could be before everything shattered? I close my eyes, trying to block out the mirrors, the voice, the confusion. For a moment, it's quiet. I can hear my own breath, shaky and uneven. And then slowly, like a whisper in the back of my mind, I remember. I remember why I'm here. Why I've come all this way. I open my eyes and turn back to the mirror that shows me as I am now. The version that's been battered and bruised by this game. The one who's lost everything. The one who's still standing despite it all. I step forward and face the mirror. My reflection stares back at me, and for the first time since this all began, I don't feel fear. I feel something else. Something quieter. A flicker of acceptance. I can't undo what's been done. I can't change the past, and I can't erase the choices I've made. But I can stop running. I can stop hiding from the truth. I choose the version of me that's still here. The one that remembers. The one that's still fighting. The mirrors shudder, and the room seems to pulse with a low, ominous hum. For a moment, I think it's all going to collapse around me, but then the hum fades, leaving only the silence. The game has given me a choice, and I've made it. A door opens in the far corner of the room. It's the exit. I know it. But this time, I don't rush toward it. I don't need to. I'm not running anymore. I've remembered. And that's enough. I woke up with a start, my heart racing, the thumping sound in my ears almost too much to bear. For a moment, everything felt wrong. The air was different, stale, heavy, as if it had been trapped for years. My eyes snapped open, and I could feel the dampness on my skin, a cold sweat covering my back. I blinked several times, trying to make sense of where I was. Gone were the walls of the resort, the cameras, the haunting whispers. I found myself lying on the grass, the cool, crisp blades brushing against my face. The sky above me was a dull gray, tinged with a faint orange glow, as if the sun was trying to fight its way through a thick fog. It felt like freedom, but it didn't feel real. Not at all. I pushed myself up, my body sore, my limbs heavy like lead. I glanced around, expecting the twisted, crumbling resort to loom nearby. But there was nothing. Only empty fields and distant trees, the silence almost deafening in its stillness. I ran a hand through my hair, confused, disoriented. What happened? How did I get here? I stood up shakily, my head spinning as I tried to gather my thoughts. My feet sunk slightly into the grass beneath me. The ground felt solid, real, so different from the endless maze of rooms and corridors I had wandered through in the game. It all seemed like a dream now, a nightmare I was slowly waking from. Then I noticed it. A small envelope, crumpled and worn, resting just beside me on the ground. My breath hitched. I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't felt it when I'd woken up. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up, the weight of it almost pulling me back into the haze I had just escaped. I turned it over, finding my name scrawled on the front in jagged handwriting, Adam Blake. It felt wrong. I didn't want to open it. A part of me was terrified of what I might find inside. But the curiosity gnawed at me, like a hunger I couldn't ignore. Slowly, I tore open the envelope, the paper ripping with a sharp sound that echoed in the silence around me. Inside was a single, folded note. I unfolded it carefully, the paper crackling slightly in my hands. You remembered. The game is over. I froze. A cold chill ran down my spine as the words sank in. The game is over. That was it. That was all they had to say to me. No explanation, no grand finale. Just these words, simple and chilling, like a slap in the face. What game? What had I really been a part of? Was it all in my head? I scanned the note again, hoping I had missed something. Hoping for a clue, something that would tell me what was going on, what had really happened. But there was nothing. Just the two lines, stark and empty. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the note in my hands. The weight of it pressed down on me, but I couldn't move. I couldn't make sense of it all. Had I really escaped? Was I free now? Or was I still trapped somewhere, in some twisted version of reality that I couldn't quite grasp? My thoughts were a mess, tangled and broken. I couldn't remember the rules. I couldn't remember how I'd gotten here, if I'd even really left. I was certain, in some part of my mind, that this wasn't the end. There was something else, something deeper I had to face. Something I had forgotten, or was it something I was never meant to remember? I took a deep breath and let the note fall from my hands, letting it float to the ground as if it was nothing more than a fragment of a dream. The wind stirred around me, but I couldn't feel it. My skin was cold, my body still heavy. Turning away from the note, I walked forward, my feet sinking into the grass with each step. There was no path, no sign of where to go. The world seemed vast and empty, stretching on in every direction. The fog that had clung to the sky was starting to lift, but it only made the place feel even more desolate. My mind kept spinning, my thoughts a blur. I tried to focus on the ground beneath me, on the soft earth, but it was as if my mind was no longer tethered to this place. I felt like I was moving through a dream that never quite ended, always on the edge of something I couldn't grasp. I didn't know how long I walked. Minutes? Hours? Time had lost its meaning in the game, and now it seemed to slip away from me even here. But eventually, I came to a stop. My feet had carried me to a small hill overlooking a valley. In the distance, I could see the outline of a city that felt both familiar and alien. I didn't know where I was, but something about it felt like home. A part of me wanted to go there, to find answers, to piece everything together. But another part of me wanted to turn away, to forget it all, to leave this place behind and never look back. I stood there for a moment, trying to decide, trying to remember who I was, who I used to be, and whether that even mattered anymore. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me shifted. It was subtle at first, just a faint tremor in the earth, but it grew stronger, more pronounced. A low rumble echoed through the ground, and I felt a jolt in my chest. Something wasn't right. I looked around, but the world stayed the same, empty, quiet. The fog had cleared, but the feeling of being watched, of being pulled somewhere, never left. My heart raced. The game hadn't ended. Not really. It was still out there, still waiting for me to make the next move. As I turned to leave the hilltop, I heard something faint but clear, whispering on the wind. Level 2, remember why you came. I froze. The words echoed in my mind, like a sentence that had been haunting me all along. Only now I understood. The game wasn't over. It had just begun again. And I was still part of it,